Okay, so this is not scheduled, so I don't expect very many people to even show up to watch this. So when you see this, make sure you go and do your homework. Um, it's hitting Twitter right now, and then a few other areas that the House Republicans they have passed a bill called HR 69 or 6090, so 6090, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act of 2023. Now, what's interesting about this bill is that they wrote it October 26, 2023, and here, you know, April, I guess, 30th, yesterday, um, it appears to be introduced into the House. I don't think it's passed the House yet. Well, let me see. It's passed the House resolution. Um, so it hasn't gone to the Senate yet, and it has become law. But what's very interesting about this, I want to break this down before we get any further. There's a few different things. For one thing, there's stuff that's hitting the internet right now. And I just want to square this away before people they see it and they start to lose their mind a little bit. From the AF post that is on Twitter, it says House passes bill to define alleging Jewish involvement in Christ's crucifixion as anti-Semitism. Now, the website that it appears that is getting this information, I'm going straight to congress.gov. I don't go to other people's websites. I go straight to Congress. I go straight to the lawmakers and see what they're writing about. Congress.gov does not reflect what's being talked about on Twitter, on social media. I'm going to say this in a very specific way, so follow me. Remember Operation Mockingbird. The CIA, who's in a lot of trouble right now, thanks to James O'Keefe and undercover reporters who are now finding out that they went completely against the Constitution, violating Fourth Amendment, and also dereliction of duty and violating oath of office by denying Donald Trump the information that he was required to be a commander in chief. All right, what's Mockingbird? Okay, Mockingbird is something that was started back in the 50s, 60s, and the CIA posted plants pretty much in every newspaper and every magazine that was distributed throughout America. Now we can pretty much say any social media and almost any online media has tentacles of some sort of the CIA in it. So when I read something like this, that is, it's not factual. What I'm reading is not factual because as they post this HR 6090, and once again, I don't know exactly which website that they're pulling this off from with the AF post, but they said that claiming that Jews were the ones who killed Jesus would be something that would be considered to be hate speech. That has nothing to say at all reflecting the HR 6090 bill that's currently sitting at congress.gov. Reason why I think this is very pertinent to understand is that this is going to be used to grossly scare people, to incite violence, incite riots, to incite an emergency amongst the people. And those people who are not smart enough to do their own simple research are going to believe everything that gets posted on Twitter will be passed around like wildfire, and it will help play into the next series of events. We have events that are guided by narratives. I've been talking about this ever since I started doing this whole radio broadcast, whatever. When you look at these types of things going on in the world, you have events, and then there's a narrative that connects one event to the next event. Right here is a narrative that's connecting to an event. What's the event? So let's break this back down Barney style. Do not forget these two things. Operation Northwoods, when the Joint Chiefs of Staff had created a very diabolical scheme, not approved by the government, not approved by the Congress, not approved by the president. It's literally just like the CIA and the Joint Chiefs, more or less. They wanted to be able to insert themselves into Cuba, cause riots, and this is all, you know, um, caused by their own double agents that would be inside. And that way they can fight Russia. It was all about fighting Russia. Okay. So they were willing to stage events that look like Russia killed people in multiple malls in Florida, also crashing a airliner filled with college students, making that look like a MiG struck it down, a Russian MiG struck it down. That Russian MiG was actually going to be flown by a US Air Force pilot who was going to eject mid-flight, and then one of our, I think, F-15 or F-16s was going to shoot it down, find the debris field in the water, yada, yada, yada. Russia did this. Now we get to fight Russia. All right. That's Northwoods. So, what was the most recent Operation Northwoods? I'm going to say a few things that I just want you to slowly consider and think about. Let's go back to October 7th. What do we know so far, and what did we know prior? So, we did not know there was going to be a terrorist event October 7th. We, the people, did not know. Netanyahu and the American government knew. They knew Hamas was going to attack. There were members of the mainstream media, Reuters, New York Post, and then one other news agency outlet was positioned there at that one concert. And out of, when they paraglided in and invaded in on their motorbikes and whatever, everybody was shot at, everybody was killed, taken prisoner, except for Reuters, New York Post, and that other news agency guy. We know that now. Who created Hamas? Well, if you start to do a little bit of digging, Mossad created Hamas, and the American government helps to fund Hamas by helping to fund the Palestinians. And then Iran is the one who then steers and guides them. Okay. So, and we also release a lot of money to Iran consistently. Thank you, Obama and Joseph Biden. So that's October 7th. We've talked about Operation Mockingbird with Twitter and the release of this 6090 House bill. And we've talked about Operation Northwoods, which I think is just another component of what happened on October 7th. All right. Everybody was very much well fooled by what happened until it started to come out that the governments knew this the whole time and decided not to do anything. Kind of looked like a small Pearl Harbor event. So, what do we have going on now? I want to read a few things to you. That's very interesting. Well, before I read this, let's just break some things down real quick. Bibi Netanyahu is on the right side of the extremist version of the political groups in Israel, which is anti-Christian. We know that for a fact because currently they're persecuting Christians and anyone else, even other Jewish people, who are speaking out against what Netanyahu's doing. Netanyahu wants revenge for the death of his dead brother from 20, 30 years ago, and he wants to get into a war, a fight with Iran. The United States wants to get into a war, a fight with Iran, because it'll eventually get us into that war and fight with Russia. Hence, I'll regurgitate Operation Nitro Zeus. Operation Nitro Zeus is the United States that will be using a softening technique by bombing the fields, the airfields of Iran, and then inserting United States Special Forces trying to take out centrifuges. And we know what happens from there. Russia gets involved. So currently, in a very stupid idea, we have our U.S. Navy docked right off a floating pier connecting the boat to Gaza, which is an active war zone with current freedom fighter terrorists out there who've already mortared our guys on that pier. They've already launched mortars, indirect fire. They've already supposedly shot small arms at them. I had it confirmed today that the SecDef, Secretary of Defense, was being interviewed by Congress about the floating pier, about what we're doing in Gaza. And Congress said, do our guys have their guns and are those guns loaded while they're out there in Gaza? And he said, yes, and yes. I said, okay, so they have guns on them and their guns are loaded. If they got shot at, can they shoot back? And he said, well, they can absolutely defend themselves. Okay, so bam, there we go. So the first time we get guys who are going to get killed by any of this, it's an act of war. The United States is already there. Um, and you got that whole thing within the Red Sea where you got the Houthi rebels that are out there trying to, take down any ship that they possibly can. Any little small victory is a huge victory for them. So while we have all this going on, out of nowhere, you have Antifa, who this is all George Soros, military. This is their paramilitary. This is stuff that Barack Obama talked about, right? This is the civilian defense force, just as big, just as strong, and just as well funded as the United States military. Well, let's break that down. It's funded by a billionaire, unlimited funds, to be honest with you. And yeah, I mean, anyone that can join has joined Antifa during 2020 and so on. So I would say they're probably just as close to being just as spontaneously big as the military at any point in time. And they're all well armed because they're all American citizens and they can all have guns, besides the felons who still have guns, no matter how many times we arrest them and take their guns from them. All right. Now, out of nowhere, in this presidential election, where Trump's getting battered left and right by the courts, by the left, you have this weird faction of anti-Palestinian groups that are going against Palestinian pro groups at these universities. All right. When you have reporters who've gone out there and talked to these groups, happened in NYU at the New York University, the people that were originally interviewed had literally no idea what they were doing there or what they were protesting. They were just there. Wow, shocker. Sounds like I've heard that before and arrested those people before. So, this is Antifa. This is absolutely Antifa. They're doing what they're told to do. This is their street soldier BS. So, we have Antifa. They've been activated. They're already at all these universities. They're already fighting cops and causing mayhem. This is what they do, right? And then out of nowhere, I mean, I don't see, Jewish students being drugged down the streets, or like anything like extremely horrendous happening. It's just kids being stupid in the universities, and then you have the communists that insert themselves in. They try to incite violence and riots. Besides, some mass arrests that are happening right now, it's not as violent as 2020. It's nowhere near that. And out of nowhere, Congress is going to say, now we have this anti-Semitism law that is been approved by the House, by the Republicans. Understand this: Republicans, Democrats, two wings of the same dirty bird, right? So that's now happened. Where does this eventually lead us? This is my analysis, all right? I could be wrong. It's my opinion. If you think you figured it out, please put it in the comment section. It appears to me that we should be looking for a few things. We should be expecting some sort of a terror attack that is on the scale of 9/11 or worse. There's recently a man who was on the Sean Ryan show. If you guys haven't seen this interview, it's the latest interview. The guy's an Afghani. He's actually a U.S. Army veteran. He was born in Afghanistan. They immigrated here. He went back to Afghanistan to fight against the Taliban. and that's currently what he still does now. One of the things that he said on there triggered something in my head, which is now starting to make a lot of sense. He said that whatever is coming, there are millions of Afghanis that are Taliban that have made it into the United States. He said, I'm going to go ahead and say between 5 to 8 million have already made it into the United States. And they've only caught, the FBI says they've only caught about 50 or 60. So if 50 or 60 were caught and 5 to 8 million Afghanis have made it through, which supposedly are on the side of the Taliban, which are friends with Al Qaeda, which are also in cahoots with Iran. And then we know that we have tens of thousands, probably millions of people that are from China, middle-aged males, or excuse me, military-aged males. And then we have military-aged males of people that are from all over around the world, here in America. A lot of things could eventually happen all at once. So let's go ahead and think about this. I would not be surprised if there was a string of active shooters that targeted large places like malls, schools, nurseries, churches, downtown squares where people sit down to eat out in public. Think of Mumbai, India, and the 6 terror attacks that happened all simultaneously within, I think it was like 24 hours, 48 hours. So I could potentially see that happening multiple states across the United States, all the same day, maybe same week, and that would cause a state of fear. It didn't even matter if only 10 people were killed by it. It's the fact that if there was 10 terror attacks that happened within 5 days, what's the government gonna say? They're gonna play Operation Knee-Jerk Reaction. Mainstream media is gonna be told, "Hey, great time to freak out and scare everybody," and that's gonna happen, and majority of Americans are gullible and stupid, and they're gonna believe it. So what does this all eventually get us to? It gets us to the potentiality of a few things. That big 9/11 like event where we need something massive enough, devastating enough, pulling on the emotional heartstrings of people enough to do a few things. One, approve war with Iran. Two, sign up for the military. We're lacking right there. So just like 9/11, because I was a byproduct of 9/11 joining the military, like many of you right now watching, this happens, that next generation is going to have that sense of patriotism, which is a very skewed word right now with this government, and then potentially want to go and fight in which fronts? We're going to have 3 fronts: Russia, Ukraine, so we have Europe, the Middle East, and then you got the Pacific against China. That's the 3 battlefronts that SecDef, that the DoD, that the State Department, that multiple different agencies have been talking about for at least 10 years. That's your 3 next major battle zones. The Middle East will never go away. It's the forever war, and that's biblically so. And then we've got what's going on in Ukraine. So we know eventually we're going to get pulled into that. Zelensky has already said, expect American men and women to be over here fighting for us. Now France is over there fighting. Now Poland's wanting to be over there fighting. Now Britain's over there fighting. We already have our agents that are out there fighting. So we can expect that to continue to grow. Oh, not to mention the number 2 guy of the military for Russia said that Russia this morning is the only country in the world that has the power to turn America into a nuclear wasteland. So let that quote stand for whatever it is. Do not be surprised if you see synagogues attacked along with these other types of terror attacks that may be potentially happening. I say maybe because I hope none of it happens. I pray to God that none of this happens, that I'm completely wrong and I'm just freaking out and I'm just looking at stuff way too intently and I've had way too much coffee. But I'm pretty sure I'm following a trail here that's being left behind for those of you with eyes to see and ears to hear. So, just to recap this, what's going to be getting posted on social media Expect that to move like wildfire. Expect them to fan the flames of anti Semitism. Expect provocateurs of radical Islamicists who may not even be radical Islamicists. They may be everyone but that to try and attack people online, verbally attack people, and then physically attack people here in the United States. And that can be in multiple stages. It can be gangs of people. It could just be deliberate, singled out lone wolf attacks, or it could be staged, coordinated attacks by actual terror groups. All this leads us to the marching zone of the next conflict, the next war. What does that help with America? Well, it helps us in a few ways. For one, war helps our economy. We all know that. Two, war will secure Joe Biden potentially to remain as president. Should Congress actually declare a war? We have not had a president declare war in 30 years. So, all the times that we've been at war in the Middle East, Congress never approved that. I've been saying for a year now, just me watching what's going on, the way the Republicans have now completely turned their backs on America, is I would expect this Congress currently to be the Congress who will approve war against Russia and against Iran. I'd be shocked at this point if it doesn't happen. Yep, that's a mouthful. So I want to read a few things to you guys real quick. Um, Everything that I'm about to read to you, I'm going to put on a short video. That way you can go back and you can review it after the live. So just give me, a few hours. I'm going to throw it all in and just make a real brief video so that you can go back and watch everything I'm about to talk about as well. Let me pull up some of the stuff. Okay. Let's talk about Blinken. Blinken's visit to China ended in absolute failure in U.S. accusations. No one from the Chinese authorities saw off U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at Beijing Airport, which is like a really big disrespectful thing. Only the American ambassador, Ambassador Burns, went there and showed up. China says that NATO bears unremitting responsibility for the Ukraine crisis. The alliance should reflect on its role, stop blaming others, and take action for a political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. Blinken responded after returning home by saying that USA has found evidence of China's attempts to influence the outcome of the upcoming presidential election in favor of Donald Trump. I mean, this is like a bad movie. This is just like a real bad movie. The head of the European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, says that hostilities in Ukraine will not end soon. Here's a quote from him. They don't know when Putin will stop this war because it was he who started it. I'm afraid that he will wait until at least the US elections. And at the same time, we must continue to support the people of Ukraine. Europeans will not die for Donbass, but we can help Ukrainians no longer die, but we can help Ukrainians no longer die for Donbass. And I know this is a tough question, and a lot of people will say, how much more should we spend on this war? How much more money should we spend? But since we committed to supporting Ukraine at the beginning of the conflict, we must continue to support the Ukrainians as they are unable to resist until Putin decides to stop the war. But this won't happen anytime soon. All right. So that's people at the World Economic Forum. This is from David Sachs over on Twitter. Zelensky announces that Ukraine is working on a security agreement with the United States that will fix levels of support for the next 10 years. The $61 billion was just the beginning. The next two U.S. presidents won't be able to switch it off. So, right now, Ukraine and our Congress is working on a bill that will force the United States to support Ukraine for the next 10 years in their fight against Putin. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have that kind of money already. And we will not have that kind of money in 10 years. It's just ridiculous at this point. Ukraine is now pulling U.S. provided Abrams tanks from the front lines over Russian drone threats. I want to talk about drones real quick. The way drone warfare is being used in Ukraine is way different than what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. These drones are very cheap DJI drones, cheap drones you can get off of Amazon Prime, and they're using them as anti-personnel drones. So think of it as a flying landmine on people. And these drones are very, very easily used, extraordinarily cheap, and the success rate of a little $500 drone with like a RPG warhead that can penetrate the soft parts, the weak parts of tank armor, which is at the very top. Their success rate is at least like 80% against, you know, a multi-million dollar tank, a $10 million tank. And so now, because the threat is so numerous, so frequent, they're having to pull the tanks off the line. This is a war we don't want here in the United States, but it's coming. All right, next thing. Okay. The 702 bill, which allows them to go through our text messages and make sure we're not colluding with foreign adversaries, that was recently passed, now is looking for words such as revolution in it. So pair that bill, which is violating our Fourth Amendment. So that bill violates our Fourth Amendment all day long. And that was passed by the Republicans with flying colors. And then you got the Senate Bill 3589 preventing private military activity of 2024 that stops guys like me from being able to train people like you, or even you and your buddies getting together to go and train. Or if you joined a militia or wanted to start some sort of group like that, it is going to not allow you to do that. It will make those actions actually illegal. And also, it bans semi-automatic weapons, large caliber weapons. It also bans stuff like large capacity magazines, all the stuff that the Democrats have been putting on bills since like 2016 that Republicans were saying is absolutely ridiculous. It's anti-constitution. It's anti-Second Amendment. It's un-American. Now the Republicans are in favor of it. Once again, because I think this Republican Congress is the one who will absolutely go to war and declare it. They have lost their minds. All right, Speaker Johnson, once again, Speaker of the House, slipped in a $3.5 billion bill for pro-migration in the aid bill. So the last $3.5 billion bill, I can't remember who it's going to. It's either going to Israel or Ukraine, but it's to help keep the fences down. Good job, Louisiana, and giving us that guy. Appreciate it. Half my family should be ashamed. All right, today the House will vote on a bill to define anti-Semitism. This is coming from Thomas Massey, Representative Thomas Massey. Anti-Semitism with the intent to increase prosecutions of activity on campuses. The bill has a problem beyond violating just the First Amendment. The definition of anti-Semitism appears to be nowhere in the bill. Why? Let me go ahead and tell you why. So, when lawmakers draft these bills, ambiguity is one of the things that they always use. The scope of the bill is so wide, the definitions are so loose, so malleable, that literally the way the U.S. attorneys laugh about it is that they can indict a ham cheese sandwich if they really just write out the warrant just right. So what does that mean? That means that Anyone who's going to be going against the United States for wanting to go into, I believe, going into cahoots with Israel to go into war with them, if you go against Israel or you go against the United States, they're going to aim bills like this, and probably other bills will be coming after this as ways of silencing people's, for one, free speech, two, social media, and three, your ability to then resist this like soon to be tyrannical version of the United States, which I think many of you are going to be surprised that it'll probably come from the Republicans. All right, here's something fun. There's a new space weapon by our military that's been tested in the United States called STARCOM, STARCOM Space Training Command. The U.S. Space Force has tested a remote modular terminal designed for counter space electronic warfare. The RMT remote modular terminal can reportedly jam enemy satellites by filling the space with competing signals. So basically, that makes your ability to communicate via satellite completely dead. I know people are commenting on the comment section. I'll do my best to go over there and read it and try to answer some questions. So if you've got questions over there, please put them to it. Just let me get through this information I have real quick. I don't want to miss anything for you guys. Okay, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has stated that there's evidence now indicating that China's attempts to interfere in American elections in support of Donald Trump is out there. We haven't really seen any of that yet, but I got him on video saying it with CNN. India has now tested a supersonic anti-submarine missile called a SMART missile. SMART missile is designed to enhance the anti-submarine warfare capabilities of the Indian Navy by introducing a rapid response system that can launch a torpedo from a long distance. It can be launched from over 400 miles away. Now, India is always fighting Pakistan. India has a navy, Pakistan doesn't have a navy. So, who is most likely this missile for? Most likely it's for China. So just FYI, whenever that war starts, you'll know one of the weapons that'll be in use. Kiev and Washington have agreed to launch a massive strike on the Crimean Bridge in early May. So May Day is coming up. What is it? Today's May 1st. Is that May Day? Expect all the freaks to come out for May. The operation is being developed by the British intelligence service, MI6, together with NATO headquarters in Europe. Even the general staff of the Ukrainian military is not fully informed about the details of the plan. This was reported by Ukrainian channels with a reference to a source in Zelensky's office. And there's all different types of pictures now that are floating around Twitter referencing the Kerch Bridge. And this is from a member of the Ukrainian military, I believe. He said, if someone hasn't had a chance to take a photo of the Kerch Bridge, it's still time. And it's a photo of the bridge with a rocket being launched and Putin scratching his head and looking down. I'll have all this on the next video coming up. Biden orders the United States to share evidence of Russian war crimes with the International Criminal Court. But now the White House says that the International Criminal Court has no jurisdiction in Israel and the Hamas war. All right, so that's the majority of what I got right now. I didn't go over a few videos, but everything that I've said pretty much is involving what I just said. So, for those of you who you want to do your due diligence, go to congress.gov and look up U.S. House Bill 6090, and you can read the bill yourself. So, like when you see the bill and you see what's being wrote, and you see other stuff on other websites that is like inserts that's not there in the bill, know that somebody did that. It's being posted on social media and it's going to be made into wildfire, and that's to stir people up. All right. Let me get to you guys' messages real quick. Thanks for everyone watching right now. I totally did not expect anyone to watch me in my little rant. Oh, I have actually another 2 reports right here. Let me go through this real quick. Okay. Palestinian encampments. This is from a guy who sends me a lot of these very well done intel reports. At Palestinian camps, brawls erupt as pro-Israel crowd attacks pro-Palestinian crowd at UCLA. NYPD removes Palestinian flag from CCNY campus. Re-raises American flag after anti-Israel protest. Police in riot gear storm into building held by pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University. City College of New York goes remote after NYPD arrests protesters. Nearly 300 arrested at Columbia and CUNY after police clear protest encampments. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators arrested at UT Dallas as police break up encampment. Other universities hosting Palestinian camps mentioned in the news today: Fordham, Iowa State, Oklahoma University, University of Minnesota, Wake Forest, and so on. Yeah, so if you've got a child at one of these universities, or if you happen to go to one of these universities, man, keep your head on a swivel. Let's see. Oh, good. Biden says he will now debate Trump. Perfect. Well, we need a little bit of laughs. China says that they could potentially block the United States from revisiting the moon. All right. Anyways, anything else conflict wise comes up, I'll make sure I post it. Let me get to you guys' questions real quick. It's late. I don't want to be on here too much longer, and you guys need to go to sleep. Have I heard of Operation Gladio? No, I haven't, but I'll look into that. That actually sounds familiar. Operation Gladio. All right, let me see. So, United Nations is supposed to be going over their emergency treaty again and giving a deadline very soon for countries to accept it. Probably so. All right. I'm going to answer a question here that is not an easy question. So Netanyahu wanted Israel Jewish women to be taken by Hamas men. Let's go back and rethink about this. If the whole world lies in the evil one, if we know that these people, these people that are obviously anti-Christian, are being played with and guided by demonic forces, by Satan, to do certain things to turn the state of Israel, to turn the United States, to turn all these other countries into this eventual global conflict. What does that get us to? All right. It takes a lot for war. It takes a lot of convincing for a lot of people to spontaneously want to fight each other. And when countries get to where they want to fight each other and throw nukes at each other, There's going to be a point in time where there's going to be a man who's going to come on the scene who's going to stop it all. And you know who that is. And he's going to be headed right there in Israel. Maybe the red heifers and all that is starting to make sense to people, right? So I'll leave it at that. We are to pray for Israel. I am not anti-Israel. I am not pro-Israel government, but I'm not anti-Israel, all right? We're to pray for Israel. But understand what's happening in Israel. There is a spirit there that is it is forcing them to get to the eventuality where they will rebuild the third temple. They will accept the Antichrist. So if you got a problem with that, I don't know. Read the Bible. Prove us wrong. I hope we're wrong. I don't want to be right about any of this. This is just me reading what's going on. Multiple false flags. Yeah, multiple false flags. The way I see it is that everything is on the table. Don't plan on just one big event. Everything is on the table. Every event is growing in its capabilities. It seems to be growing in its intensity, and then it seems to be also growing in the amount of news that it's getting, right? So when it comes to these terror attacks, whatever happens next has to be big enough, has to be horrifying enough that the United States Congress will come out and say, enough is enough. We're going back to the global war on terror. We're going to revisit things that we should have finished a long time ago. And we're going through with taking out Iran. That's the way I see this. And I will have you know that the better half of just the average person Iran, I've met a lot of Iranians. They don't like to be called Iranians, like to be called Persians. They are not in support of the Mahdi, the 12thers that want the Mahdi back out in Tehran. They're just average people. I have had lunch with them. I have talked to them numerous times. We had a little operation in New Mexico. I had to stay overnight at a hotel. I've actually told my wife about this. And me and one of the other guys that I used to work with, God, I was so stupid while we were there. We're out there to help protect James Comey. What a loser he was. Anyways, the family that owned the Hilton out there by the airport in New Mexico, they were all Persian. And I mean, just as nice and as polite as you could be. They grew up as falconers, so they hunted with falcons. They owned this great big wine grape farm. And it's like illegal in Tehran, but everyone else drinks wine in Iran, apparently. Just simple, nice, normal people. So you have that religious radicalism that's right there in Tehran, right? And that's the people that the Democrats, Biden and Obama, have been releasing money to. And it's been going to those people, the radicals. And the radicals are feeding the other radicals around the world. Don't forget, it was the mullahs from Iran, 2017, 2018, that said that the whole goal for them was to eventually get a young jihadi into Mexico, link up with the cartels, go through the tunnels in between Juarez and El Paso, and then drop like a ricin bomb or an anthrax bomb in El Paso and kill hopefully 300,000 people. I remember watching the video after one of our special agents was debriefing us and showing us about it. And we were all just like, holy shit, how do we stop that? There are an unknown amount of tunnels. We don't have enough tunnel teams. We have so much going on the surface. We cannot watch the surface and the tunnels. And just El Paso alone, there's not enough people just to take care of tunnels there. So if you start from Brownsville and work your way all the way to Tijuana, there's an unknown amount of tunnels. And the ones that we have found, I mean, one of them you can drive an 18-wheeler through. So what can't they smuggle through these things? I don't know. Why don't you write Congress and ask them, why we keep funding wars everywhere and why they want to keep spending our blood in all these other wars and our money and not secure the border. Common sense complaints, Doug. No one's going to listen to you. Who did I reference? Yeah, Sean Ryan, the Sean Ryan show. He's a prior Navy SEAL. He recently had a guy on. His name's Golden. They won't give his actual name. You won't be able to see his face because he's still currently involved in anti-terrorism operations out in Afghanistan. Listen to that entire interview. It is probably one of the most well-informed interviews you're going to get of the last 5 years of how dangerous America is right now, how close we are to war right now. And even that, um, me and the guys on the Vindicta Solutions teams, our training teams, we're all currently listening to a new book that's out by Annie Jacobson. Probably my favorite researcher, Annie Jacobson. Her books, I have all of her books. You can listen to them all on Audible. I've tried to get her on this show, but she's extraordinarily hard to get a hold of, so that kind of sucks. But her newest book, Nuclear War, download that book and listen to the first chapter. That first like 45 minutes, it describes from point A to point Z of the detonation of a nuclear bomb in Washington, D.C., and everything that will happen, all the government agencies that will get spun up, how the effects of the bomb will look, how it'll be affected, the 100-mile blast zone. And from there, you will begin to understand and ascertain why we are truly as close as we are to nuclear war that we've ever been, because we are so unprepared to stop nuclear war, but we are so prepared to start nuclear war. Nuclear weapons are no longer a deterrence in America because everyone can make them. And since Russia and China and us and India and France and everyone, I think there's only 9 countries who actually have ICBMs, but North Korea has ICBMs. So out of the, you know, 8 countries who are semi coherent, you have that one incoherent guy. You can't really tame them. Um, China does nothing but just poke the starving bear over there in North Korea. So you do have that, you know, 1 in 1,000 possibility of a nuclear launch happening. And the way it's described, how she gets her information coming straight out of the Department of Defense, out of the Pentagon, she's getting the latest declassified information. And as I'm listening to this book, she's saying things that I know, that I have heard before in my previous past. And I'm sitting there going, how is this lady able to talk about some of the programs that she's talking about and naming people that she's talking about and can still walk on both her legs? Well, because Annie Jacobson released a book called Nuclear War at the right time when it looks like we may go into nuclear war with Russia, possibly against China. Do you see now the dots connecting, right? Anyway, it is a fantastic book for anyone who does want to read it. Her Operation Paperclip and Pentagon's Brain book will just blow your mind. Let's see. Oh yeah, if you are getting unsubscribed to our YouTube channel, can you please let us know? Getting a lot of people saying that they're getting unsubscribed. They're they screw with this channel all the time. It's all right. It's whatever. War is a racket. Smedley Butler, one of the greatest Marines to have ever lived. All right, guys. So there's no questions on here. Um, Look, common sense is not a common virtue. I hope on the day that all this finally takes place, that uncommon valor will be found common amongst you, brethren. Get close to God. If there is ever a time to get close to your Maker, to start acting right, to repent of your sins, to get your family ready, spend more time with your kids and your wife and your husbands now than ever. Now's that time. I don't think, and this is just me personally, I don't think we need to worry about Donald Trump and Joe Biden and all the others in what they plan on doing with all their politicalness, because it appears that war is coming no matter what is going to happen. So be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. Look, when all this stuff kicks off, there's a high likelihood, once again, that we are going to lose power. It happens. When countries are invaded, we attack the power. We attack the telecoms, so we attack communications, which will mean your internet, which will mean your banking, and we attack satellites. So that's going to happen. And then from there, we attack the electricity grids. So, like, you can expect that if the United States gets messed with at all in any way, those things are going to get touched, right? That can either happen by provocateurs here in America. It could, we could do it ourselves to help further increase the severity of traumatizing Americans into wanting to go to war, or it should be through actual threat actors, through actual terrorists, or through other militaries. But the day that happens, absolute chaos is going to happen around you in the city that you're in. Be prepared. Um, Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Justin, our partner from Vindicta Solutions, is going to come on. Over at readymaderesources.com, we've got a limited amount of MVGs right now that have just came in. I'm going to let Justin talk to you about that tomorrow. But there is a special sell on them right now. Look, MVGs are very expensive. I get that. They're like $3,000 for a set of MVGs. But the ability to see at night is unparalleled in movement and protection. If you can't do that, then they also have, I think they're about $500, $600 handheld thermal optics that we just got in. So those are actually pretty cool. Well, we've been using them a lot at the training recently. Right now in Ukraine, in that war zone, people are being killed left and right because of thermal optics, which is interesting. We push NVGs, but thermal is one of the things that you just can't hide from very well anymore. So, unless you can afford a thermal optic that you can shoot from, you can at least afford a thermal optic that you can scan from, and then you can shoot from MVGs, right? So, I mean, if we're talking about the doomsday scenario of us being invaded and Russia's over here, equip yourself to the best of your own ability and your own means. Don't go broke doing it. But if you have that ability, a lot of people ask me about night vision. Is it something that I should get? Are there other things I should get? I think tomorrow, because so many of you have asked, I'll do an honest gear review of like my own stuff that I carry, from my pistol to my rifle, the type of optics I use and why, flashlights I use and why, belts I use and why, my helmet setup, my plate carrier. It's all very simple. But it is all expensive. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's all expensive. I don't buy cheap gear. And so I can show you tomorrow, how I set things up, why I set them up. And I've been running it this way for many, many years. So hopefully that'll be beneficial to you guys who are asking. Because I get this so much, I'll go ahead and just throw this out there for anyone who actually cares. There's a few websites that I actually like put my rubber stamp on. That's a very good place to go to. Um, T-Rex Arms, they're Christians. They're out of Tennessee. Good dudes. Help support trexarms.com. That's a good place to get all different types of gear. So go visit them. From there, a lot of the stuff that I carry is specifically is Spiritus Systems. So Spiritus Systems, Spiritus Systems. I carry their plate carriers. Absolutely love it. Fero Concepts is another one. Fero Concepts. They're boys out of Canada. They make some really, really, really Gucci gear, really good gear. In fact, their plate carrier that they created, the Slickster, is now what everyone has copied. And so everyone now does what they originally created. So those are companies. Crye Precision, CRYE Precision. That's a very high cost, expensive company, but is the best combat pants you will ever wear. It's just they're like $300, but I have 3 sets of them for a reason. So yeah, I mean, from there, like shoes, Solomon's. Solomon's or oboes. So I'll show all that crap tomorrow. But yeah, I wanted to throw that out there for because we've got so many people who ask these questions all the time. Before I go, there's 2 things I would like to share with you though. Yesterday the Lord had me start with Psalm 3, which is a morning prayer of trust in God, and ending last night in Psalm 4, which is a evening prayer of trust in God. So about a year ago, the Lord had me literally walk outside with my Bible, and I would walk around outside and I would recite Psalm 3 in the morning, or the Bible app off my phone, and Psalm 4 in the evening, and I would just read it out loud. So I want to read Psalm 5, a prayer for protection from the wicked. Listen to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning and sighing. Heed the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray. In the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. In the morning, I will prepare a prayer and a sacrifice for you, and watch and wait for you to speak to my heart. Man, this is why I'm saying you need to be getting up in the morning and praying to God before your family sets foot on the floor. You should be up praying, giving your time, your morning sacrifice to the Lord. For you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness. No evil person dwells with you. The boastful and the arrogant will not stand in your sight. You hate all who do evil. You destroy those who tell lies. The Lord detests and rejects the bloodthirsty and deceitful man. But as for me, I will enter your house through the abundance of your steadfast love and tender mercy. At your holy temple, I will bow obediently in reverence for you. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight, direct, and right before me. For there is nothing trustworthy or reliable or truthful in what they say. Their heart is destruction, just a treacherous chasm of yawning gulf of lies. Their throat is an open grave. They glibly flatter with their silken tongue. Hold them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their own designs and counsels. Cast them out because of the abundance of their transgressions, for they are mutinous and have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge and put their trust in you rejoice. Let them ever sing for joy, because you cover and shelter them. Let those who love your name be joyful and exult in you. For you, O Lord, bless the righteous man, the one who is in right standing with you. You surround him with favor as with a shield. You guys hear me talk about the shield wall a lot. You hear me talk about the phalanx of faith a lot. What do you think I'm talking about? I'm talking about God. Wherever you're around, be that member of that shield wall. Be that member of that phalanx of faith. Support your brothers and sisters around you. Lift one another up. Be there for each other. Don't be afraid No matter what comes, no matter what they throw at us, don't be afraid. God's with us. Thanks for listening. God bless you all. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.